Hi, this is Tom Hartman. Radio or Not presents the 24-hour nonstop broadcasting event of the year, Occuthon, supporting the Occupy Wall Street movement and the 99%. Join Radio or Not's evening primetime hosts Kenny Pick, Danielle the Leftneck Chick, Shane O, and Jacob Dean as they broadcast nonstop for 24 hours to support Occupy Wall Street. Occuthon 2011 starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th, and will be live until Saturday, December 17th. Occuthon.com for more information. Occuthon 2011 will be highlighting Occupy camps and charities all across the country and providing you with all the information so that you can show your support for the Occupy movement directly. Plus, numerous guests will be stopping by and they'll be taking your calls live during the Occuthon. And don't forget the live and interactive Radio or Not Ustream chat room where you can always be part of the conversation. Occuthon 2011, 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th until 7 p.m. Saturday, December 17th. Visit Occuthon.com for more information. That's OCCUTHON.com. Occuthon.com. Occuthon 2011 from Radio or Not.
If you're looking for filters, you came to the wrong place. This is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean.
Began with a small, disorganized protest on Wall Street in Lower Manhattan here in New York, has grown to demonstrations nationwide.
Filter Free Radio, live every Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, on the Ustream home of Nicole Sandler, Radio or Not, and filterfreeradio.com.
Occupy Wall Street protesters identified themselves as the 99% that will no longer tolerate the greed and corruption of the 1%.
If you kill Wall Street, there'll be nobody else to create jobs. Wall Street is Main Street. That's all we do on Wall Street. We finance companies. And companies are people.
There seems to be no turning back as demonstrators express their outrage at what they call the injustices of the U.S. economic system.
Occupy Wall Street!
But what exactly is their message?
I hope that the system changes towards inclusion, and that's it. And that's what I love about this so far, is that people are peaceful, they're respectful, and that it seems to come from a place of love. And that's where you want to be.
Do not fuck this up! We welcome them with love and respect.
Revolutions are not made on protests. Protests are simply demonstrating. Revolutions are made by seizing power, seizing control, and seizing power. And the way you do that is by making real demands and agitating for them.
And welcome to Filter Free Radio. My name is Jacob Dean. Thank you so much for hanging out there with us. We're broadcasting live. It is December 12th, 2011, broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., inside the Beltway. It is 7:01 p.m. in the evening on the East Coast. If you're joining us on the West Coast, where all the action is happening, National Day of Action at the ports. We're going to get into that. It is 4 o'clock on the West Coast, and coming up in just 30 minutes, we're going to have someone who worked at the Port of Portland for over 30 years on the program to talk a little bit about what's going on with Occupy the Ports, specifically in Portland, Oregon. It's happening, that particular movement, up and down all along the West Coast. Demonstrations occurred today in Los Angeles, Long Beach, Oakland, Portland, Anchorage, Seattle, Tacoma, and even in Houston. So it's not just the West Coast. But we've got so much to get into today and so much to share with you. Lots of news, lots of happenings. I want to mention really quick, with me by my side as always, our fantastic super-duper mass producer, co-host, Skeptical Scott's in the house.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
And my name is Jacob Dean. If you don't know, please check out our website, filterfreeradio.com. Scott, I got a breaking news press release here that just came down the wires, literally. And I want to share this with you. For immediate release, December 12th, 2011, RadioOrNot.com hosts Occuthon 2011. Oh, shameless self-promotion. No, I'm just kidding. We did officially release the official press release today about Occuthon. The word is spreading about Occuthon 2011. It is the week of Occuthon. This Friday, December 16th, 7 p.m., we're broadcasting 24 hours nonstop, a marathon of support for local Occupy camps and charities nationwide. Please join us right here on Radio or Not, Filter Free Radio. a whole slew of people have jumped on to help us get the word out, to syndicate Occuthon. Of course, you can watch it right here, radioornot.com. Also, Free Speech TV, freespeech.org, the TV network that carries the Tom Hartman program, and Democracy Now! Free Speech TV will be carrying Occuthon live as it happens. And again, you are encouraged to participate during Occuthon. We're going to be taking your calls live during the event, and I'm so very excited to get into that. We'll have lots of more information on Occuthon throughout the rest of the show. We're going to get you updated on what's going to happen. Also, over the weekend, I typed up a 11-page manifesto of Occupy, notes and jazz that we're going to get into. Well, and we've also posted on the website, occuthon.com. So if you're interested or want some more information, or you want to help, again, share the love and spread the word about Occuthon, this is the week to do it. It is this week. It is this Friday. Please go to occuthon.com for more information. You can check it out there. And find us on Facebook. Find the event on Facebook and invite all of your friends to come. So that would be fantastic to see all of you there. And like I said, we're going to be taking your calls all 24 hours live. I will be occupying the Hartman studios here and occupying the phones. All of the Radio or Not hosts, Kenny, Danielle, Shano, and myself, are going to be rotating on-air shifts. We're going to take turns so each of us can, take a break, have a nap, get some food, while the other ones are rocking and rolling. Meantime, I'm going to be here camping out, occupying Hartman Studios, where the phones are, taking your calls live for 24 hours, and I'm just so excited for Occuthon. So spread the word, spread the love. We're going to play a few promos throughout the day. Many a thanks to the fantastic Mr. Tom Hartman for lending his voice to the movement and to Occuthon, so thank you, Tom. And again, for more information, check out occuthon.com. Okay, housekeeping out of the way. Let's get to the news of the day, some news that I want to get into and share with you. Did you know that the world, not just the United States, but the world loses $3 trillion annually? That's $3 trillion with a T, $3 trillion annually to worldwide tax evasion. Isn't that ridiculous? People just simply trying to game the system. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. There's a new report from Tax Justice Network about this. Also, Elizabeth Warren is pushing back against Karl Rove. Karl Rove, his infamous Crossroads GPS super PAC that likes to lie, cheat, and steal, put out a very disingenuous lying ad against Elizabeth Warren. She's responding back. We've got the audio. We've got her ad that we're going to share with you in just a little bit. I love supporting Elizabeth Warren, as she is for the 99%. She's for the working class, and as very prominently stood out against big money in Wall Street. Love Elizabeth Warren. And we need more people like Elizabeth Warren getting active within the system and working inside of the system to help make it a better system for all, even though the system is corrupted, and that's why we need to be working from the inside, and we need to be working from the outside. Just an inside tactic will not work, simply because
we need everything, man.
This system is
Just
broken.
Throw it all at the wall.
Right. Inside, outside. Also, for those of us who feel, hip-hop phenomenon, Jay-Z has more say than Chris Hedges. History is pop culture. I wanted to share, I've got some audio of Jay-Z we're going to share a little bit later in the program, saying, I wouldn't mind paying more in taxes if it meant that it would go to things that really mattered, like education, healthcare, helping the poor. Jay-Z is finally weighing in, as well as some other, prominent, high, class figures are saying, you know what? Yeah, I'll pay a little bit more in taxes if that means a better world for everybody. And I think this is a good sign. It's the beginning. And as Rush wrote in the lyrics, closer to the heart, and the man who holds high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart. So I'm going to share that audio with you coming up a little bit later in the program. Also, did you know, this is shocking to me. We all know, the income inequality in this country, which leads to many, many, many problems and symptoms of, income inequality that we're experiencing. We know, the numbers out basically are saying that the richest 400 Americans have as much wealth as the bottom 50% of Americans combined. But just the Walmart heirs, the Waltons, own 30%, or have as much wealth as the bottom 30% of Americans. Walmart. So I want to talk a little bit about that a little bit later in the program. And did you know this is funny to me? Well, not funny. Funny in a very sick and twisted way. That there were men arrested over the weekend in North Dakota on suspicions that they stole cattle from a nearby farm, and it was in the middle of the night, and they were located. They were spied out and located by a predator drone conducting surveillance domestically. And if you don't know, Congress actually authorized drones to be used domestically back in 2005 to patrol our northern and southern borders. But what's up with this? Definitely raising a few eyebrows here and there. Of course, with the news of the drones killing U.S. citizens. Thank you, Scott. With recent news of drones killing U.S. citizens without trial or anything. And the news of the, ever increasing police state with the military bill and these other things that are basically, it's kind of scary to think about. And we've actually had a lot of concern about that from people that we've heard from over the last couple of days about that military bill that is on its way through. It hasn't passed yet. There's still many loopholes. There's still, much, progress for the bill to be able to actually come law. And it's just scary to think about. It really is scary to think about that. There, there are people in this country, politicians, our country's leaders, quote unquote, some of them are saying, yeah, it's perfectly okay to define the United States of America as a battlefield. And if we have suspicion that you could be a terrorist, we have the right to lock you up and hold you indefinitely without a trial or without a release date. That's really going on, and we're going to dive into that a little bit later in the program. Also, the other news of the day, the UN Climate Summit in South Africa basically wrapped up over the weekend. Not much came out of it other than, UN climate negotiators are beginning to say out loud that world leaders, particularly here in the United States, are incapable of reaching a deal to reverse global climate change. I would add that one step is getting oil money out of American politics. We will see. I think we have a better chance of leveling the Rocky Mountains with a spoon than getting money out of politics. But we'll see. And speaking of getting money out of politics, I also want to mention again, 1 week from right now, Buddy Roemer, the Republican candidate for president, is going to be joining us live here on Filter Free Radio. So get your questions ready for Buddy. I've got a couple of things that I want to ask him, and I think we're going to have a really fun and interesting conversation. I'm digging through my audio archives, and I'm going to be pulling out some William Jennings Bryan from 1908 talking about campaign finance reform. And I'm going to play those for you next week as well as part of, kind of a get money out of politics show next week we're going to do for you. And again, many thanks to Governor Buddy Roemer for joining us. So next week, don't miss Filter Free Radio. Booyah. So that concludes the news of the day that I want to share with you. And of course, we'll get into that all in just a little bit. But the big news of the day is definitely, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Occupy. The Occupy protests continue. Occupy DC, arguably the longest lasting occupation in the country. It's growing. This is only the beginning. Like I mentioned, I typed up a 11-page kind of
talking points memo,
manifesto, whatever you want to call it, on Occupy Wall Street. And this is actually what I'm going to be using when we do our Occuthon broadcast as my cheat sheet. But and I've got that with me now. We're going to share a few talking points and things with you. But I want to talk about the Occupy protesters blocking the gates. The what is it called? It's called the Occupy the Ports, I think is what it's called. It's a national day of action that was planned for this morning at about 12 hours ago, 6 o'clock in Pacific time on the West Coast, 6 o'clock a.m. And hundreds of protesters showed up, blocked the gates at some of the West Coast's busiest ports this morning, there were several shutdowns, partial shutdowns, several in a day of demonstrations that protesters, occupiers hope will cut into the profits of the corporations that run the docks. Now, that's kind of their ultimate, their goal here is they're saying, okay, let's go occupy the ports. And we had a list of all of the different that I just read off in the beginning here. Los Angeles, Long Beach, Oakland, Portland, Anchorage, Alaska, Seattle, Washington, Tacoma, many others, and everything in between. They were occupying the ports to say, we're going to cut into the profits of the corporations that run the docks, and we're going to try to take a swipe at so-called free trade, or the fact that, we used to make things in America. We used to manufacture things. I know it's hard to imagine, but we actually used to make things in America. When was the last time you looked at a piece of clothing and it said "Made in America" that you were wearing? I can almost guarantee you that nothing I'm wearing is made in America because I don't make enough money to buy things that are made in America, hence the problem. That is, kind of the full circle of the problem right there. But, kind of the goal of the occupiers at the Occupy the Ports was we can shut down the ports, cut into the profits that the corporations could make from running the docks, and at the same time put a lasso on what is so-called free trade in that, we have American corporations who outsource work overseas. They make the crap literally as cheap as possible and sell it back to us, and we buy it, and then we turn around and get screwed all over in the process. And part of the thought process behind occupying the ports was, well, we could shut that down for a day. We could shut down the exporting of goods, and importing of goods that single kind of handedly creates this free trade that doesn't really isn't free. There's no such thing as a free market, but that's a whole different rant.
Yeah, free trade has nothing to do with freedom.
Right, exactly. And so that was kind of the goal, or the kind of the theme that the occupiers and Occupy Wall Street was having with this Occupy Ports. But coming up in about 10 minutes, I'm going to get someone who worked at the Port of Portland for over 30 years, and I want to get their take on it because it's not exactly all fantastic good news about occupying the ports. I'm reading from an article from the Associated Press today, just a couple hours ago, that came out. They said the closures affected terminals at the ports in Oakland, California, Portland, Oregon, and Longview, Washington. And again, they were planned from California all the way up to Vancouver, British Columbia. Protesters picketed at the gates of the ports, causing really long wait times for trucks coming in and out, semi-trucks. And I really want to speak to our next guest, who's going to be coming up in a couple of minutes, about this and what all that this entails. There were no major clashes with police, so people were nonviolent. Nonviolence and resistant civil disobedience is the only way to go. They also mentioned that the movement used the language targeting Wall Street on the waterfront. I kind of like that. That was kind of cool. Wall Street on the waterfront. I'm a big fan of alliteration. And here's kind of where we get into the gray area of the Occupy the Ports. Now, they're standing up for workers against the port companies. We understand that. They're standing up for the longshoremen. They're standing up for the truck drivers. They're standing up for all of these people who are in the 99% who just happen to be in the vicinity of these ports. They're standing up for them, and they're protesting the companies, the corporations that own the docks, that operate the docks, etc. We understand that, but is the motives of Occupy the Ports really only affecting their targeted goal or only affecting their targets? We're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. I think there's a little bit of a gray area here in that could the, Occupy movement, the 99%ers, actually be hurting other 99%ers? And that begs two questions. The first question is, well, obviously, I'm basically already asking it. It begs two questions. The first question is, how should the Occupy the movements, the 99%, when they're planning and staging these occupations and protests, should they really take into account the full extent of their actions? Are they planning for the full extent of their actions? Yes or no? That's a question. And also, it raises the other question, the second question: what should we be occupying? What will actually, serve as a target goal here? You see what I'm saying? What can we be actually occupying that won't have tangential effects on?
You're talking about collateral damage on the working man.
Exactly. How? So, what should we be occupying? I want to ask that question. I want to get your feedback in the chat room. Hello to everyone who's hanging out in the chat room. Good to see you. And I need to log in, by the way. So that raises a couple of questions. We understand what they're trying to do, and we understand that they're trying to do right. But is everything that they're doing right, and is the outcomes right? So we've got that to get into, and we're going to get into that as soon as we come back from the break with a former Port of Portland employee for over 30 years. He's been inside. He's seen it. He's worked there. He's been there. He's done that. He knows what's really going on down at the ports. And I want to ask him a couple of things about the longshoremen down there, the occupiers, what's really going on there. And I want to get into that gray area a little bit. And so I'm going to share that with you, but we've got a couple of minutes before we hit the break, and I don't know if anybody saw this or if everybody saw this, but President Barack Obama was on 60 Minutes last night, did a little feature piece with 60 Minutes, and there's actually a couple of clips that I want to share with you that I don't think everyone else in the media, in the corporate media, well, obviously not in the corporate media, but I don't think anybody else in the independent progressive media is picking up on. And granted, we've all heard Obama, and the theme among progressives on Obama is we've heard the talk, let's walk the walk, and I'm fully behind that. I want to see legislation that backs up everything that he's been saying, that backs up the rhetoric. I want to see, an FDR. I want to see a revolutionary, a revolutionary president as we elected and need at this time. So we'll see.
Yeah, talk is cheap.
So speaking of talk is cheap, I want to play a couple of clips from Obama from 60 Minutes last night, and then we'll come back and we'll talk Occupy the Ports with a Port of Portland employee for over 30 years who definitely knows what's going on. Here's the first clip, and I like this and how Obama is really laying out what I've been laying out in that we need people to tell the truth. We can't be honest anymore, and we have to be honest with each other in order to establish a starting point in any negotiations whatsoever.
Look, the problem is that our politics has gotten to the point where we can't have an honest conversation about the greatest income inequality since the 1920s, and we can't have an honest conversation about the irresponsibility that resulted in the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression without somebody saying that somehow we're being divisive. No, we're being honest.
We're telling the truth. You know, you can call it what you want. You can call it socialism. You can call it partisan politics. You can call it class warfare. But we're simply telling the truth. And I view that as being so pro-American and loving your country so much that you're willing to go against the grain and tell the truth. George Orwell, famous quote, Skeptical Scott, what was it?
In times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act.
Bam, telling the truth. We need a new wave of truth tellers. And if you can't even tell the truth to begin with, how are you supposed to move forward with a debate? Or how are you supposed to move forward with a compromise or discussion? Or simply how are you supposed to move forward on a false premise? You cannot move forward with the truth and a better, for the better with an established false premise.
Yeah, most people are underinformed, and those that do have some clue of what's going on are probably misinformed. They're Fox News or your corporate media watchers. So most people are passive consumers of news.
Right.
Unlike our listeners, which are awesome, by the way.
Yay. Good job, guys. And also Obama called out Republicans and actually finally set it on tapes for someone to record, which I did for you, that he's figured out what the Republicans are up to, and they have been for the entire, last 3 years. Simply crash the economy, then blame Obama. And he said it. I think this is a good beginning point.
It was my firm belief that at such an important moment in our history, there was no reason why Democrats and Republicans couldn't put some of the old ideological baggage aside and focus on common sense, what works, practical solutions to the tough problems we were facing. And I think the Republicans made a different calculation, which was, we really screwed up the economy. Obama seems popular. Our best bet is to stand on the sidelines because we think the economy is going to get worse, and at some point just blame him.
Right, just blame him. And then he chimes in with this kicker, which I like, from Joe Biden.
Yeah, Joe Biden has a good expression. He says, "Don't judge me against the Almighty. Judge me against the alternative."
How about them apples?
Ugh. Talk about lowering the bar.
But I've got time for one more clip, and this is the most important clip that I kind of played all those to set up this one. And this is the one moment in the entire 60 Minutes interview that I think is actually worth playing, worth repeating, and sharing with you. And Obama actually talks about how, changing the corrupt culture in D.C. is not just something that can happen within 4 years of his presidency, and not necessarily something that can happen within the first year or two for those of us who are critics on the left saying, oh, Obama hasn't done enough, Obama isn't doing this, he's not doing that, is the blah, 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 blah. He had this whole spiel about that in the 60 Minutes piece. But what he says right here in this 30-second clip is so important. And I want to play this, and we'll go to break. And when we come back, Occupy the Ports from a Port of Portland, this is Oregon, Port of Portland employees. So don't go anywhere.
Have you and Michelle ever had a conversation about whether you should really seek a second term? Have there been any doubts in your mind about not running again?
No, not because our quality of life might not be better if I were not president, but because we both think that what we're doing is really important for a lot of people out there. I always believed that this was a long-term project, that reversing a culture here in Washington dominated by special interests. It was going to take more than a year. It was going to take more than 2 years. It was going to take more than one term. Probably takes more than one president.
I think that's the most brilliant thing that he's ever said. But that's just my opinion, and I'd love to get your thoughts on that. I'll log into the chat room over the break, and don't go anywhere. We'll have a Port of Portland update for you on Occupy the Ports live in just a couple of minutes here on Filter Free Radio, your home for news and politics and everything that you need to know that you can't get anywhere else, especially from the corporate media. So seek out your independent progressive voices. We'll be right back.
Me fail English? That's impossible.
Radio or Not presents the 24-hour nonstop broadcasting event of the year, Occuthon, supporting the Occupy Wall Street movement and the 99%. Occuthon 2011 starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th, and will be live nonstop until Saturday, December 17th. Occuthon.com for more information. We'll be highlighting Occupy charities all across the country and giving you all the information so you can show your support for the Occupy movement. Plus, numerous guests will be stopping by to chat and will be taking your calls live during the Occuthon. Don't forget the live and interactive Radio or Not Ustream chat room where you can always be a part of the conversation. Don't miss this amazing chance to help support Occupy Wall Street and the 99 movement directly. Occuthon 2011, 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th until 7 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, December 17th. Visit Occuthon.com for more information. That's OCCUTHON.com. Occuthon.com. Occuthon 2011 from Radio or Not.
You're listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News Service. I'm Jesse Russell. Are corporations people? Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders doesn't think so, and he's calling on the Senate to pass a constitutional amendment down to the states so it would become the law of the land. According to the Saving American Democracy Amendment, corporations could not be considered persons with constitutional rights equal to people. Corporations would be subject to regulation by the people. Corporations could not make campaign contributions. And Congress and the states would have the authority to regulate campaign finances. The goal of this amendment and similar amendments introduced by Senators Tom Udall and Michael Bennet is to overturn the Citizens United ruling by the Supreme Court, which reaffirmed that corporations are people. Sanders said on the floor of the Senate,
"Corporations are not people. Bank of America is not a person. ExxonMobil is not a person."
Sanders said that due to the freedoms allowed to corporations, Congress has been hobbled.
Every member of the Senate, every member of the House, in their back of their minds will be thinking, gee, if I cast a vote this way, if I take on some big money interest, am I going to be punished for that? Will a huge amount of money be unleashed in my state? Everybody here understands that that's true.
Today's attempt by Occupy Oakland to shut down ports on the West Coast is not being supported by the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. Doug Cunningham reports.
ILWU spokesperson Craig Merrilees says while the union is generally supportive of the Occupy movement, the dock workers were never consulted. On this December 12th, ports shut down, and so the ILWU is not supporting that action.
The ILWU is opposed to the shutdown of the ports on the 12th of December, and I think for good reason. Workers are understandably upset to hear that an outside group has come in and going to try and shut their workplace without having communication, without respecting the democratic decision-making process.
Despite its opposition to the West Coast Port December 12th shutdown, Merrilees says the ILWU and the Occupy movement need to be working together.
The ILWU has been a strong supporter of the Occupy movement. The union has a long history of support for social justice movements, but this particular tactic, the call to shut down the ports, is misguided, ill-informed, and unwanted by the ILWU.
Comments from Craig Merrilees, courtesy of Radio Labor.
Workers Independent News puts workers and their unions on the national radio news airwaves every day. To help keep labor's voice on the air, go to laborradio.org.
You've been listening to WIN, the Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Radio or Not presents the 24-hour nonstop broadcasting event of the year, Occuthon, supporting the Occupy Wall Street movement and the 99%. Occuthon 2011 starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th, and will be live nonstop until Saturday, December 17th. Occuthon.com for more information. We'll be highlighting Occupy charities all across the country and giving you all the information so you can show your support for the Occupy movement. Plus, numerous guests will be stopping by to chat and will be taking your calls live during the Occuthon. Don't forget the live and interactive Radio or Not Ustream chat room, where you can always be a part of the conversation. Don't miss this amazing chance to help support Occupy Wall Street and the 99 movement directly. Occuthon 2011, 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th until 7 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, December 17th. Visit occuthon.com for more information. That's OCCUTHON.com. Occuthon.com. Occuthon 2011 from Radio or Not.
Filter Free Radio on the Ustream home of Nicole Sandler, Radio or Not, and filterfreeradio.com.
I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. Only a hippopotamus will do. Don't want a doll, no dinky tinker toy. I want a hippopotamus to play with and enjoy.
And welcome back to Filter Free Radio. My name is Jacob Dean. It is the week of Occuthon. We're getting close to Christmas. I'm going to start playing Christmas songs, much to the demise of Skeptical Scott, my fine co-host, who is very anti-Christmas music. The Grinch. We're going to be nicknaming.
You pagan.
I'm just kidding, Scott. We love you, buddy. Thank you for joining us. We're broadcasting live from Washington, D.C. inside the Beltway. And I wanted to get on the line the person who I would consider the expert of all the happenings going on at the port of Portland in Oregon. And, of course, as you know, today is a day of action put on by, the Occupy protesters and Occupy camps throughout the entire country. And it's called Occupy the Ports, specifically targeting West Coast ports. God, I keep forgetting where this damn thing is. There we go. Sorry. There were staged demonstrations on ports this morning in Los Angeles, Long Beach, Oakland, Portland, Anchorage, Seattle, Tacoma, and even Houston. A media spokesperson for Occupy Oakland said, quote, "The Occupy movement is attacking the 1% at their point of profit," end quote. And I can understand that they're targeting the epicenter of, some of the country's economic problems, so-called free trade centers, where they take in goods that used to be made in America. But is that really all that they're targeting? On the line with me is former employee of the Port of Portland for over 30 years, a guy who knows the ports well, very well, and actually participated in Take Your Child to Work Day. I remember when we went down there to Terminal 6 around the Port of Portland there and actually planted some native plants. And Jacob the Tree Hucker was born. Welcome to the show. My father, Dad, J.D. Fishin from the Radio or Not chat room.
Hello.
Hey, Dad, how's it going? Hello?
Hello. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Oh, okay, the buttons are working. The hamsters are
I can't hear you on the phone.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Fix it.
Hello?
Is it me or you?
Can you hear me on the phone?
Hey, buddy.
Hello. Can you hear me on the phone?
No.
You can't hear me on the phone. That's not good.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, sir.
Uh-oh, hang on here just a second. And what's going on here? Why isn't the magic wheel turning?
I've got fucking problems.
Yeah, we do have a couple of problems here. Are you there? Dad, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me on the phone?
Okay. No, just I got your audio up on the screen here.
Okay, so you're listening to us off of the computer. That's not good. Here, interesting.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
Not sure what happened.
Here, let's... Did that...
I had you on the phone here before the break, but...
Let's go while we're young.
All right, can you hear me now?
No, not on the phone.
Okay. Well, we're currently having some minor technical difficulties, which I had not anticipated. And let's see here if we can't... Okay. Well, you know what? Shit happens. This is the beauty of live radio. Dad, you
Can I use my cell? Maybe I'll use my cell.
No, it's quite all right. It's quite all right. What we can do is I'm going to mute Scott's box here because it's annoying the fuck out of me. And, Dad, if you can hear me via the internet, that's fine. Just go ahead and listen to our broadcast on the web. And what we'll do is there's going to be like a half a second delay there, but that's quite all right. You can still hear me, and we can do this just fine. I want you to kind of just real briefly share with our listeners and folks out there the fact that you worked for the Port of Portland. I'm not making this shit up, and that you actually worked at part of the terminals, and you actually took me there. You even saw President George W. Bush give a speech there. And so kind of the happenings around the port, from your everyday worker perspective, and how that's a little bit different from, say, the corporations that run the docks that the occupiers were trying to target. Can you tell us a little bit about, what, your involvement was at the Port of Portland, and, how were you around the terminals and things like where they're talking about protesting now and shutting the ports down?
Yes. They were picketing, I guess, or protesting out there at Terminal 6 today, and also at Terminal 5. Terminal 6 is a container port and also auto dock port, so they bring in Hyundais and Hondas and what. But I guess
is everybody
this
still
morning they
listening
had
to us
about
out there?
at least over 200 protesters blocking the entrance to Terminal 6. I guess there was a few arrests. They were checking some folks, and they found couple folks with some guns and gas masks and stuff. So anyway, but they got that taken care of, and I guess it's been all pretty peaceful as far as that goes. But they did shut down the port for this morning as of 6 o'clock and backed up the truck traffic coming in, the trucks that are bringing in the containers and to come and go. They have ships sitting out there wanting to be loaded, unloaded. A lot of Christmas goods are coming in. They had one longshore spokesman just a bit ago. She came on ABC or Channel 2 here on ABC and talked for a minute. And I guess they kind of wish they would have talked with them a little bit prior to this. But they are honoring the protest of the longshoremen. I guess they just said that they were going to have they canceled the evening shift there. And that's going to put out another 320 people, they said. They're on the news as far as between the two terminals, Terminal 6 and Terminal 5, I believe it was. And Terminal 5 is a grain terminal, one of the West Coast largest grain export, wheat, basically, terminals.
Yeah.
But my job when I was there, I was just as a horticulturalist, we did a lot of restoration work, mitigation work on the riverbanks, replanting native vegetation, trying to eradicate the
invasive.
I'm just looking at the news here now, sorry. But, But can you hear me?
Yeah.
Weird. I can't,
that's quite all right. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
I can't hear nothing on the phone when I'm talking to you. But
it's quite all right. We hear you just fine. It's just a little bit of a delay. So what you'll do is, we hear you just fine. You hear me just fine. There's just about a second delay in between us. So bear with us. But I thought that this was really important.
Sure.
I thought this was really important and to have you on because. You worked at the port. You know what it's like down there. What the actual on the scenes, is like at the port. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were telling me when we were having a conversation about this earlier today that there was at one point where your work group was, in the works of beginning to protest or start a protest and. The port actually was able to work with you and compromise and get a deal worked out immediately, almost immediately, because they realized how everything that was at stake from you guys potentially striking? And then, so answer that question for me, Dad. And then from there, I want to talk about what's at stake with the Occupy the ports going on, and if the occupiers are actually getting through and targeting their ultimate goals.
Yes, yeah, they are shutting down the port. They're going to shut it. They canceled, like I say, evening shift for the guys out there, and so they'll be shut down this evening.
Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, they've completed what they wanted to do. It's when you shut down that port, especially Terminal 6, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in one day that's involved with the ships that come in that are tied up there on the berths. They're bringing in cargo goods to go to Lowe's, Walmart, all that. Essentially, unfortunately, it's hurting the consumer. The folks that are driving the trucks out there, bringing the containers in and out, it's hurting them as far as income. So,
let me absolutely
kind of got to weigh it all out, and
Yeah, you definitely have to weigh out everything, and that I was kind of raising that question earlier in the broadcast, that we understand that the occupiers are trying to target the corporations that run the docks and trying to target the so-called free trade centers where we, take in goods that used to be made in America, but the jobs have been shipped out overseas, and so they're trying to do something about that.
Exactly.
But at the same time, they're also the same time they're also affecting the part of the 99% in that the port workers who actually work at the port, the truck drivers. All of those other folks who are actually part of the 99%. I'll read really quick from this Associated Press story. They spoke with Christian Vega, who's 32 years old, is a truck driver down in California, and they said, they asked him, they said, quote, he said, the truck driver said, quote, "This is a joke. What are they protesting?" And this was someone who sat in his truck carrying a load of recycled paper from Pittsburgh this morning. He said that the delay that the protesters were causing costed him personally $600 today. And then he goes on to say, quote, "It only hurts me and the other drivers. We have jobs, we have families to support and feed. We are part of the 99%, basically." So can you tell us a little bit about, how a protest at the Port of Portland might affect those who are part of the 99%, the longshoremen and the truck drivers and everyone there, how that, these protests who aren't necessarily targeting these folks, but they're actually affecting these folks, average day people, the 99%.
Yes. Well, just for instance, the longshore themselves out there, they will not be getting paid today, even though they were asked not to come to work and to honor the picket or the protest. So that alone, that's a lot of money there. Like I say, like you said, the folks driving the trucks in and out of the terminals that are bringing containers in, containers out empty and full of cargo that coming in off the ships. It's quite an impact, and it's going to impact the consumer, at the shopping mall or at the
and I know we're having some technical difficulties, and I apologize that the phone's not working as well as I thought, but and I know it's kind of weird with the feedback and the delay in hearing yourself that it's getting all kind of mumble jumbled there, and so I want to apologize for that. And again, thank you for coming.
That's quite all right.
And thank you for coming on the show.
I understand.
Too.
Technical difficulties.
That's
from West Coast to East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of live broadcasting. You never know what's going to happen. So.
Sure. Yeah, we had good feed earlier. Then after the break, I'm not sure what happened.
That's quite all right. So, Dad, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and we'll be in touch as the official Filter Free Radio Portland news updater for the show. JD Fishing from the chat room. If you're in the Radio or Not chat.
Again, like I said, they're reorganizing at Kelly Point Park, and they are going to go reorganize and I guess go to the Terminal 5 or Terminal 4 and continue their protests.
And that's great. I'm happy to see that. I'm also happy to have you on the show and to give us a lowdown and to thank you for being a part of the program and giving us the much needed update here in the studio and live on the scenes from Portland, Oregon. JD Fishing, if you're in but go ahead.
Yeah, the sun just now going down. It's supposed to freeze up tonight, so unfortunately for those guys.
Yes.
That's the dedication right there, out there in the freezing weather.
All right, and I'm gonna let you go here, Dad. Again, thanks for calling and give us an update. And if you're in the chat room, give him a shout out. He's JD Fishing in the chat room. So, Dad, thank you again for your update, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll get an update from you soon.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Dad. And my apologies for the technical difficulties. You never know what to expect with live radio. And as some friend of mine points out, the opposite of live, live backwards is evil. So just as you never know what can happen. But yeah, I wanted to get Dad on about that. He worked at the Port of Portland for 30-something years. I mean, he knows what's going on with the port. He knows the longshoremen. He knows what it's like going on, in that atmosphere down there. And I wanted to get a take, from someone who is actually on the ground, who's part of the 99%, and is being, who would know what the effects of this protest could be. And so, things like that are really important to take note of. Things like, and it's just like, it goes right back to the topic of violence. For example, if one person in the entire movement, participates in an act of violence, that act of violence is then forecasted upon the entire movement, and many of whom do not condone such acts. What I'm trying to say is the Occupy protest, the Occupy the ports, I understand where they're coming from and that they're trying to target the profits of the corporations that run the docks, and at the same time they're trying to target the so-called free trade centers, basically the epicenter of some of our country's economic problems, and that the goods that used to be made in America are coming into via these ports. I understand that they're targeting that, but they have to take into account what the ultimate effects of their movement are, and some of the effects of this Occupy the ports is actually affecting port workers, truck drivers, people who are in the 99%, who are in solidarity with them. Like Dad just mentioned, some of these longshoremen have been told not to come into work, and they will not receive pay for the day. So that begs the question. That begs several questions. And Scott, I'm curious if you want to answer any of these, or if you have further questions that this asks. Is first of all, are we occupying the right things? What should we be occupying, and why should we be occupying? And are we taking into account the full outcomes of such protests, of such organizing movements? So, just food for thought.
I couldn't hear your father, but did you guys touch on the fact that most of the truck drivers are owner-operators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was sort of the gist of what I got from the story today from various people online and such, that the longshoremen themselves, most of it's been deunionized. In other words, everyone's a private contractor. Every truck driver is an owner operator, and they're not a member of the union, so they're not really even able to strike if they wanted to. They're literally beholden. That's part of being a contractor, is that you're your own boss, but you're also beholden to the company which you're subcontracting from. So it's a real catch-22, and I mean, I'm of the opinion that the entire country needs to be shut down in a general strike, for extended periods of time. And if everyone could sort of plan for something like that, that'd be really helpful. But
culture strike.
Yeah, I mean, in order to attack the ports is one thing. I think it's a good thing to bring awareness to it because, let's face it, Goldman Sachs actually owns they own a 49% stake in Carix Incorporated, which is a company that operates, it says here, 125 ports worldwide, including Los Angeles, Long Beach, Mexico, Chile, and New Zealand. So, I mean, Goldman Sachs has their hands in everything. In fact, I would argue that they're probably the root of most evil that we have to deal with these days, or at least them and people of their ilk that operate and own portions of one form or another, if not all of, most of the things we, read, see, hear, and do in this country. So it's quite a supernatural organization, and it's really hard to combat when you can't vote against them, and because they're donating to every candidate. They really do control most of the politicians in one form or another. So it's a tough situation. I would argue that if we can organize a mass general strike where everybody is prepared for something like this, and they can sort of say, okay, I'm going to prepare for this, and because one day is not going to make much difference to these people. I mean, this is an organization that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars, if not $1 trillion, I think. And so this is a blip on the map for them. They'll just say, whatever. And it really affects, unfortunately, this kind of protest affects more on a larger percentage basis the independent contractors, people who are struggling day to day, to put food on the table. So it's a really sticky situation, man.
And and a wise person once told me, you really have to pick your fights. And, a fight that we should be picking is taking sides with Occupy movement and the 99%. But I want to ask this question, and I mean, I'm not looking for an instant answer right now. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I'm trying to get you to realize what we should be thinking about. And the question to do that right now with the Occupy the Ports and this day of action is simply, what should we be occupying? Should we be occupying Wall Street? Should we be occupying the Capitol? Should we be occupying the ports? Should we be occupying the banks, the airwaves? What's your ideas?
Yes, yes.
And
all that.
And why? And are we taking into full account all of the consequences that come of these occupations? Are all of these occupations solely targeting the 1%, or are there some of the 99% that's being affected by these protests that we need to, at the very least, consider and acknowledge?
Well, hey, I have a clip for you in that vein if you're ready.
Yeah, ready.
All resistance finally begins with a reorientation of how we relate to the world.
And that's the gist of it. I mean, if we can reorient ourselves to the world around us, then that's a huge paradigm shift. The way you see the world in suddenly a very different manner, and that's the start. It really is the start, and then all resistance, of course, is local. Moves out from there. So,
yeah, it comes from the mouth of Chris Hedges. It's got to be good, right?
The engines of corporatism cannot be halted. They are impervious to the will of those who they exploit. They are more powerful than the governments they control, and they have built within them an inevitable kind of mechanism for self-annihilation, because corporations have this strange pathology where they turn everything into a commodity. Human beings become commodities, the natural world becomes a commodity, and you exploit these commodities until exhaustion or collapse. And that's precisely what's happening.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. That is precisely what's happening. At the same time, what's happening is we're trying to support a movement that is trying to sustain itself and be long-lasting, long-term. And in order for a movement to be self-sustaining and to last long-term, it needs the support of the community around it. And in order to do that, in order to get the support of the community around it, I believe that the movement needs to carefully pick its fights, carefully think about what its targets are and what the full outcomes of its protests and movements will be, and make sure that they're picking the right things to do and doing the right things. And there are no you had a really concise point that you mentioned earlier, Scott, about the side effects of what could possibly be happening.
You're talking about collateral damage on the working man?
Collateral damage on the working man. That's what I'm talking about. And if you subject your working man to collateral damage in your protests, you're not necessarily gaining the support of the community around you need for sustainment. All right, there, I said it. As succinct as I'm going to get tonight. Don't go anywhere. We're going to get into the rest of the news of the day, and Scott's got some excellent clips we're going to share with you. And we're going to talk a little bit about Occuthon, Buddy Romner, and some other things coming up in the next week or so. Don't go anywhere. Filter Free Radio. We'll be right back.
Giggity, giggity, giggity goo. Stick around.
Hi, this is Tom Hartman. Radio or Not presents the 24-hour nonstop broadcasting event of the year, Occuthon, supporting the Occupy Wall Street movement and the 99%. Join Radio or Not's evening primetime hosts Kenny Pick, Danielle the Leftneck Chick, Shane O, and Jacob Dean as they broadcast nonstop for 24 hours to support Occupy Wall Street. Occuthon 2011 starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th, and will be live until Saturday, December 17th. Occuthon.com for more information. Occuthon 2011 will be highlighting Occupy camps and charities all across the country and providing you with all the information so that you can show your support for the Occupy movement directly. Plus, numerous guests will be stopping by, and they'll be taking your calls live during the Occuthon. And don't forget the live and interactive Radio or Not Ustream chat room where you can always be part of the conversation. Occuthon 2011, 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16 until 7 p.m. Saturday, December 17. Visit Occuthon.com for more information. That's OCCUTHON.com. Occuthon.com. Occuthon 2011 from Radio or Not.
Rich men in a darkened room, making plans to fuel the corporate boom. Flowers of evil begin to bloom in a rich man's world. They'll dam the rivers and cut the trees, drag the fish out of the seas, drill for oil wherever they please in a rich man's world. It's not for the money, not the fame. They want the power, the rush, and the game. Rich man's world. Power is the key to the game. Power is the lock and the chain. Power is the heat of a flame that destroys the rich man's world. They'd like to make a better bomb than the ones we used in Vietnam. They make good money selling arms in a rich man's world. Poison pours from the factories into the water out on the breeze. And if they bring this planet to its knees, it's not a garden to tend, it's a sponge to squeeze in a rich man's world. It's not for the money, not the fame. They want the power, the rush, and the game. Rich man's world. Power is the key to the game. Power is the lock and the chain. Power is the heat of a flame that destroys the rich man's world. Rich man's world. Rich men in a darkened room making plans to fuel the corporate boom. Flowers of evil begin to bloom in a rich man's world. Power is the key to the game. Power is the lock and the chain. Power is the heat of a flame that destroys a rich man's world. Rich man's world.
Protests are planned for tomorrow.
Come experience the next generation of progressive voices every weekday night on Nicole Sandler's primetime lineup at radioornot.com. Liberate yourself with Filter Free Radio, hosted by Jacob Dean every Monday night.
It's just the system is broken. Bring it down. Bring it all down, right?
On Wednesdays, rediscover the progressive South on Left in Dixie with the Left Neck Chick.
Because, you know what? I think change is coming to this country. Don't you guys?
Get your progressive groove on Thursday nights with Funked in the Head, hosted by Shano.
It's not that people are asking for something that is unreasonable. It's that we're hopeful that we can have an even shot too.
Then let it all hang out both Tuesday and Friday nights on Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick.
You love the Constitution so much, but you hate the government, but you love the corporations. Where does that come from?
Tune in every weekday night to the primetime Radio or Not lineup at the Ustream home of Nicole Sandler, radioornot.com.
This is it. You're listening to Jacob Dean.
Most of our leaders have either sold out, caved in, gave up. They don't want to tell people the truth.
If you're looking for filters, you came to the wrong place.
They're too concerned about their careers. They're too concerned about success. They're too concerned about just winning the next election for their status.
We bring you the real stuff. This is Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean.
But who wants to tell the truth? The condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. You don't talk about poverty, you're not telling the truth. You're not talking about working people being pushed against the wall with corporate profits high. You're not telling the truth.
You're listening to Jacob.
If you're not talking about the criminal activity on Wall Street and not one person gone to jail yet, you're not telling the truth.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean on the Ustream home of Nicole Sandler, Radio or Not, and filterfreeradio.com.
And we live now in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Live every Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern.
We're going to have a new wave of truth-telling. We're going to have a new wave of witness-bearing. And we're going to teach the younger generation that these brothers didn't struggle in vain, just like John Brown and Nat Turner and Marcus Garvey and Martin King and Miles Horton and the others didn't. And we shall see what happens. We might get crushed too. But you know what? Then you just go down swinging like Ella Fitzgerald, Muhammad Ali.
Oh, I love hearing Dr. Cornel West. That was such a treat. Welcome back to Filter Free Radio. My name is Jacob Dean. We're in our second hour here. It's 8:06 on the East Coast. We're broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., inside the Beltway. My name is Jacob Dean. By my side, super duper awesome, fantastic co-host Skeptical Scott.
Hello.
You realize that I make up those randomly so I can fill time to get the ready. But
I did not know that.
But now you know my secrets. And speaking of unveiling secrets, I will admit, my apologies, Dad. I figured out what was going on with our phone issue, and I thought I had everything in order, and the producer failed. So that's a producer fail for Jacob. Occasionally it happens. My apologies. If we were going to do it now, everything would be fine. Go figure. But I figured out what was wrong. We had some wires crossed in the back of the board there. I don't know if you can see all the wires in the back of the board. You can see a little bit of the board, but we did have some wires crossed. My apologies.
Yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah, but if it wasn't too bad for you, I thought it was a fine interview. So, Dad, again, thank you for joining us. And if you're in the chat room, the Ustream chat room, which let's give a quick shout out to Adam Brokehammer, Gypsy Cat, JD Fishing, Johnny Double O, Oregon Fish, Scooter Cons, Shane O, Shirley Rocks, Skeptical Scott, Snork Y2K, Tom Schaefer, Vic, and 8 guests. If you're in the chat room, give a shout out to Dad, JD Fishing there. Hey, JD. And the big news of Radio or Not for the entire week is Occuthon this Friday. Begins 7 p.m. this Friday, which is the 16th. And I'm so excited that there are, how many syndicators do we have now? We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 websites that will be syndicating Occuthon, most predominantly Free Speech TV, the network that carries the Tom Hartman program on Dish Network and DirecTV, and freespeech.org is their website. Free Speech TV will be carrying Occuthon. That is confirmed. Woohoo! Yeah, baby! And, of course, you can hear it right here, Radio or Not. I encourage you to listen to Occuthon right here, Radio or Not, in the chat room so you can participate with us live 24/7 in the chat room. Also, we'll be taking your calls during Occuthon. For more information, as they say, callers are standing by. No, not really. For more information, visit Occuthon.com. Occuthon, OCCUTHON.com for more information. Please spread the word about Occuthon. It is this Friday, this week. We only have a couple of days to spread the word, spread the love. The Stephanie Miller Sexy Liberal Show was talking about it this weekend. Fantastic. Chris Lavoie of Stephanie Miller's Show talked about it on Friday. Thank you, Tom Schaefer. Thank you to Vic, who got us on to Free Speech TV. Thank you to Tom Hartman for voicing the promo. Thank you to Shane, Danielle, and Kenny for your nonstop commitment to this fantastic event. And I've made a couple of promos and typed up an 11-page memo on Occupy Wall Street. So, we're all pitching in. We're all doing our part. We're all going to make it happen. And Scott's going to be with me.
Yeah.
Scott's going to be with us on Occuthon. Scott, are you excited for Occuthon?
I got to admit, I'm pretty excited.
Really?
Yeah, I was skeptical at first. I'm like, really? When you first had this idea, all I could think of was, I got to do 2 more shows this weekend and take off work for it. And now I'm like, I don't mind taking off work. This sounds like a good idea. We got some, people on board. We're going to be syndicated, and it's a good opportunity, I think, to get the word out, So
I'm so excited.
I'm all about it.
And I also want to mention real quick, JD Fishing, my dad says, 50 lashes with a wet noodle for the producer who can't figure out how to plug in wires correctly into the back of the board. I'm sorry. So we'll be sure to...
Hey, and Shano said that your talking points are up on the site.
Hey, sweet! Shano, you rock, brother. If you're interested in looking at the 11-page manifesto that I typed up over the weekend, please visit Occuthon.com. So, I am. At the beginning of the show, I mentioned that we were going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff.
Hey, can I digress before we do all that?
Yes, please.
Only because you played the Cornel West intro, and he mentions Muhammad Ali. And I have a little clip for you. It's about 60 seconds, and it's an old one from, I believe, the late 60s in the height of his popularity. I found it on YouTube. It's really random. You can tell he's young, articulate, and still in really good shape. And so it's an interview I want to play for you. It's just sort of speaks to what Cornel West was talking about. So here we go.
You mentioned President Nixon there. I was reading a piece that Norman Mailer wrote about you recently where he described you as the second most prominent American, second most prominent after Nixon. We might dispute that. But would you like to be president?
No.
No?
No, sir. Too dangerous. Like, in other words, here's a ship. People are dancing on the ship. A lot of money's on the ship. A lot of food's on the ship. And I cannot integrate on the ship. I cannot have equality on the ship. I'm just in the galley working. And I never could get up and see the captain of the ship. Now, all of a sudden, the man tells me, say, come on down. I'll leave out of the galley. I want you to come up here and have something to drink. What do you want? And giving me number 1 spot. From the galley to the number 1 spot. I said, this ship must be sinking. Why is he so nice to me now? What moves him to call me up here? Black men have been males now. One might be the president. America's in too much trouble. I don't want that job now. Something to think about, eh?
Yeah, something to think about, eh?
Yeah, something to think about.
I just thought that was crazy prophetic. He's like, oh, they make a black man president when times are really bad? I don't want that responsibility or that blame.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that was on Muhammad Ali back in, I think it was 1968. So
that's
that was just crazy. Anyway, but you were going to go to the topic of news of the day.
Well, yeah, we got a couple of things that have caught my attention that I thought was really interesting. I want to share with you. And Scott, I want your takes on this. That I have to agree, we all know or at least participate in what I would consider the tax game or gaming the system. But I mean, for those of us in the 99%, we're probably talking about $100 here, a couple $100 here. I want to share these shocking statistics that just came out from a brand new report from the Tax Justice Network about $3.1 trillion. $3 trillion in tax evasion occurs in the world every single year. That means that $1 in every $6 in the world is not subject to tax. And that also means to me that it's not just the U.S. that gets screwed by multinational corporations when they, outsource and offshore, manufacturing and goods and things like that. It's not just the U.S. that they're screwing by not paying U.S. taxes by putting all their profit offshores. They are indeed screwing the countries in which they're doing their quote unquote business. So I thought that was really interesting. $3 trillion annually is lost to worldwide tax evasion. And again, of course, it's not about being American, doing the right thing, supporting America, supporting the commons, understanding that taxes are the price we pay to live in a civilized society. No. It's about gaming the system. And so it's about greed, simply. So I wanted to share that. I thought that was remarkable that $3 trillion every year we lose to tax evasion in the world.
And that's what you get with free trade.
And that's what you get with free trade, which doesn't really exist because free trade doesn't exist. Yeah.
It's a farce.
Yeah, it'll do that. Also making news, Elizabeth Warren is fighting back against Karl Rove and his super PAC, Crossroads GPS, which unveiled a extremely indigenous and lying political ad, basically saying that Elizabeth Warren was responsible for the 2008 bank bailout, which is absolute bullshit because the bailout was a Republican measure. Elizabeth Warren was later chosen to head the panel, providing much-needed oversight to that program, and she, in fact, was a consistent advocate for greater accountability regarding the bailout funds. And I love the fact that she's running for Senate against Scott Brown in Massachusetts. I want to play real quick 50-second clip from Elizabeth Warren fighting back against Karl Rove and his corporate money.
We must be doing something right if Karl Rove is attacking us. And boy, is he ever, with ridiculous attack ads financed by Wall Street. Let's be clear. Karl Rove isn't just attacking me. He and his buddies are attacking all of us in Massachusetts who want a level playing field for middle-class families. I've spent years standing up to Wall Street and the big banks, exposing their tricks and traps, fighting to get a fair shake for people. No attack ad, and certainly not one from Karl Rove and Wall Street, will change that. We're building a strong grassroots organization to take them on, and I need your help. Reach out to your friends, talk to them one-on-one, make sure they know the truth, and ask them to go to elizabethwarren.com and sign up. I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I approve this message, and I thank you.
Even if you're not in Massachusetts, Ray, I'm talking to you. Even if you're not a part of Elizabeth Warren's constituent, don't you think it's important that we support Elizabeth Warren as a fantastic voice and advocate for the 99% and simply accountability in the financial sector and transparency in the financial sector, and how do we get more people like Elizabeth Warren involved?
You know, the sad thing is that the Dodd-Frank bill is such a piece of shit, and the Wall Street reform, the Consumer Protection Agency that it created, still doesn't have a head of it. She was supposed to be the head of the Consumer Protection Agency, and there's no one running it. There's like 100 positions not filled, including the head of the Consumer Protection Agency. And so as a result, she realized that position was, even if she were to get, let's say, nominated or elected or whatever to that position, that she would be completely hamstrung in order to do anything. So she really had no choice if she wanted to be active and push back against corporate America and Wall Street, that she had to run for Senate. And what a better place to do it against Scott Brown. So it's really the only option she had. And it's a shame, because that's just basically saying that whole protection agency is weak and feckless, and that the whole Dodd-Frank bill is just a joke, So that's why she's running for office. I'm
just looking at the support in our chat room right now for Elizabeth Warren. Tom Schaefer applauds Elizabeth Warren. Shirley Rocks says Elizabeth Warren is awesome. Victor says Elizabeth Warren will make Scott Brown's pants brown. I
like that.
And I think it's important to point out that Elizabeth Warren is kind of your ideal grassroots, bottom up. I'm for the people. I'm part of the 99%. I'm here to speak the truth. I'm here to tell it as it is and to fight for the middle class.
Yeah, she's an honest and moral person, and we're really lacking any kind of morality in our system these days. And let's face it, to move up the meritocracy and to move up, as anyone knows, if they try to move up in corporate America, you make certain compromises in your own morality. You make compromises, say, okay, I won't talk about this topic, or I won't bring this up, and this is a sore subject, and da-da-da-da-da. And so you compromise. And in the end, you end up giving up what equates to morality, and you become, somewhat amoral in the quest for success and financial gain. And so she's a real honest person in that realm, and it's really remarkable.
Absolutely. So a tip of the hat to Elizabeth Warren. And if you know anybody who's trying to get involved in politics and is like Elizabeth Warren, is grassroots, fighting for the middle class, give us a shout. Let us know. Maybe we'll get them on the show. We'll do a promo. We'll feature them. We'll highlight them. Anything that we can do to do our part to help make a better world, I'm all for. You can always email us. I'm Jacob at filterfreeradio.com, and also co-host Skeptical Scott. That's skeptical at filterfreeradio.com. You can always email us with thoughts, concerns, and money to throw. And one of the other stories that I want to get to, Scott, is the UN Climate Summit in Durban, South Africa, that wrapped up over the weekend. Now, and this is as Scott kind of wrapped it up in 0.3 seconds. He said, "Ugh." Let me tell you real quick. The deal reached in Durban basically kicks the can down the road. Simply laying out steps towards signing a new climate change treaty in 2015. So they're going to sign a new treaty in 2015 that won't be enacted until 5 years later in 2020. And that's, quote, well beyond the time frame most climate scientists agree is the point of no return, end quote. Also, another point to point out about the UN Climate Summit, UN climate negotiators are beginning to suggest that world leaders, particularly the United States of America, are incapable of reaching a deal to reverse global climate change. That, to me, begs the question, are we beyond the threshold of salvation when it comes to the environment?
Yeah, we may very well be. It's what they're talking about in this very cynical, what they've done here. The U.S. is essentially obstructed any kind of climate, regulation, any kind of reinstatement of Kyoto or reinforcement of Kyoto, if you will. And so, literally the State Department policy is their diplomacy is to delay. That's all they want to do is delay and not be responsible and push it down the road, and to the point where it is too late. The arguments are that we're already past the point of no return. And then even if we stopped, cut our carbon emissions in half today, the planet would still rise 3 degrees. It would still be unlivable for human beings. So they don't even want to talk about it until 2015 and 2020, which is insane.
And one of the things that you point out to me, Scott, is that's actually the argument against Al Gore, and saying, recycling is a good thing, limiting our carbon emissions individually is a good thing, doing what we can to help the environment is a good thing, but asking the big picture question, are we beyond the threshold of salvation when it comes to the environment? I like Shirley Rock's answer in the chat room. She says, answer, yes, we're screwed.
Yeah.
But
that's you're quoting Derek Jensen actually in that one interview we listened to him, where he basically said, Al Gore is the evil, or what's the word I'm looking for here? Al Gore is not helping the green movement because everybody will go to the ends of the earth, just thinking that if we recycle, it'll make a difference. When in fact, it won't make much difference, in the grand scheme of things.
And Tom Schaefer points out in the chat room that Al Gore has said that we've already passed the point of global catastrophe. Absolutely, we've already passed the threshold. I like this question. Think about this very, very, carefully. Are we beyond the threshold of salvation when it comes to the environment, politics, the economy, the culture, etc.? That's like my new favorite. That's my new favorite question.
Here's a clip for you, bud.
Yay, clips.
A question that at least runs through my work pretty constantly is what is our threshold to recognize the death spiral, or what is our threshold to recognize that we don't live in a functioning democracy?
Yep.
What is that threshold? How many people is it going to take to wake up and be like, oh my goodness, we can't solve the problems as they stand today. Therefore, what do we do just as a species? In the terms of the environment alone as a species, we're screwed.
Yeah, at what point do you say, enough is enough and we have to, God forbid, do some sort of, action against these polluters? How do you stop a coal-fired plant? How do you stop dams? How do you stop all these massive polluters from polluting without further polluting the environment? You know what I mean? In terms of how do you bring them down without any sort of violent destruction of the planet itself? So it's a tough situation because if the government's not going to do it, then it's in our hands to do it. And there are people out there anarchists out there. There's an organization called NCIV, which is kind of frightens me just to think about it. But there are organizations out there that want to end civilization as we know it, because the only sustainable society is the Stone Age, and we'll be there again someday. It's just a matter of what's left of the planet when we get there. So, the notion that we can stop fossil fuels, we can actually get off of oil and gas and coal and all that, and actually start a clean energy environment. It's a radical transition, and there's no way that these oil companies are going to allow that to happen, because it would ruin them. That would totally end their existence.
And that's a brilliant starting point. Getting big oil money out of government, getting big oil money out of our political system. So
You'd have to nationalize them. We'd have to actually get the government to physically nationalize all these industries that should be part of the commons anyway. There's most power companies outside the U.S. are owned by the state, right? Because they're taxpayer dollars is a necessity. It's like healthcare. Healthcare is a necessity. So is electricity can be argued to be a necessity. And so rural electrification was put in place by FDR because he subsidized and forced these companies to run power lines out into the middle of nowhere. Right. Otherwise, all these rural communities wouldn't have power because it's not economically feasible for these companies to provide them power. There's not a big enough demand out there. So there's got to be some way to nationalize, in addition to nationalizing the banks and all these other corrupt industries, but to nationalize the coal, the fossil fuel industry, so that they can stop polluting and start manufacturing solar and wind and clean energy.
I'm applauding Scooter right now in the chat room, who says, remember, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of rocks. Okay, the humans can change if the motivation is sufficient. I strongly agree, Scooter. And in order to kind of get the ball rolling, to get that momentum moving, and to use the language that you used, in order to get that motivation of change to become sufficient, I think if we introduce money into the equation, people immediately become more concerned, become more involved, become more invested in what is going on. And that's simple. I mean, it could start with a carbon tax. It could start with, small steps, like a carbon tax. I can't remember what country it was that officially implemented a carbon tax on the country. Is the first in the world, and tip of the hat to them. It's probably somewhere in the UK, somewhere where they get it and we don't.
It's probably one of the Scandinavian countries, but
the damn socialists. But what's going on is they're implementing a new carbon tax. They're basically saying, would you mind paying a little bit more in taxes if it meant it went to things that really mattered and really brought about a genuine consensus of the people to wake up, to realize, to smell the roses, to smell the coffee, to actually wake up and go, oh my God, this is what's going on. We're killing ourselves as a species. We're killing the planet in which we call home. I know there's some of us out there who's like, yeah, let's go, investigate into Mars, and let's see what's going on Mars, and let's go find out another planet where we could live as a human species. Why don't we try to make what we've got better to begin with? That's my question. But in any case,
it's also a little delusional to look for that kind of a solution. I mean, if we're destroying this planet, what makes you think we're not going to go somewhere else and do the same? I mean, why not readjust our understanding of what it means to live on this planet before we do something radical like try and jump off the planet?
Well said, Scott. I like that. And so when we come back, I want to play a clip for you from Jay-Z. Kind of a hip hop, pop culture icon at the moment. And he says, I am perfectly cool with paying more in taxes if it meant going for the right things. And this ties in exactly what we're talking about. I want to touch on a little bit more with Scott on this. We'll be right back. We're going to play a few more clips and a little bit more on Occuthon. Don't go anywhere. Filter Free Radio, filterfreeradio.com. We'll be right back.
It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
Radio or Not presents the 24-hour non-stop broadcasting event of the year, Occuthon, supporting the Occupy Wall Street movement and the 99%. Occuthon 2011 starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, Friday, December 16th, and will be live non-stop until Saturday, December 17th. Check out the website, Occuthon.com. We'll be highlighting Occupy charities all across the country and giving you all the information so you can show your support for the Occupy Wall Street and 99% movement directly. Plus, numerous guests will be stopping by to chat, and we'll be taking your calls live during the Occuthon. Don't forget our live and interactive Radio or Not Ustream chat room, where you can always be a part of the conversation. Occuthon 2011. Visit Occuthon.com for more information. That's OCCUTHON.com. Occuthon 2011 from Radio or Not.
The kids are coming from everywhere to occupy the streets, confronting the bankers and brokers who are hiding in their fancy suites. They're staking out a territory for the 99% who've been stabbed in the back by Wall Street and betrayed by the government. The kids made a list of why they're pissed: unemployment, racism, war, corporate control of everything, a system rotten to the core, environmental destruction, and those crushing student loans, schools and healthcare broken down, foreclosures on people's homes. The revolution will not be televised, but it's alive and kicking online. Forget Fox and the major networks, they're way behind the times. It's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, videos, blogs, and texts, from cell phones, webcams, laptops, and who knows what's coming next. The revolution is on its way. It's coming to a city near you. Check your local listings for time and place and do what you have to do. Open your heart, open your mind. It's time, it's way past time. The desperately poor and the homeless are growing in every town. The middle class is sucking wind and it's close to going down. Jobs are scarce and wages are low unless you sign up for the endless wars. But fighting and dying for the empire, that's not what these kids are for. And the rich men hidden by glass and steel would like to control the scene. So they call out their boys in uniform, the teeth of their machine. So many people speaking out now are getting busted by the cops. Pepper sprayed and slammed down hard, but their voices will not be stopped. The revolution will not be televised, but it's alive and kicking online. Forget Fox and the major networks. They're way behind the times. It's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, videos, blogs, and texts, from cell phones, webcams, laptops, and who knows what's coming next. The revolution is on its way. It's coming to a city near you. Check your local listings for time and place and do what you have to do. Open your heart, open your mind. It's time, it's way past time. The world has been waiting for those of us who are living in the belly of the beast to climb on board this train that started in the Middle East. Americans are waking up. We're tired of this ugly deal, with 1% living like kings and queens, taking everything they can steal. So the kids just keep on coming. The poor, the unemployed, those with hope for the future, and a planet that's not destroyed. Gay and straight, every color, young and old in the street. Democracy and justice on their lips, and man, the taste is sweet. The revolution will not be televised, but it's alive and kicking online. Forget Fox and the major networks. They're way behind the times. It's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, videos, blogs, and texts, from cell phones, webcams, laptops, and who knows what's coming next. The revolution is on its way. It's coming to a city near you. Check your local listings for time and place and do what you have to do. Open your heart, open your mind. It's time, it's way past time. Open your heart, open your mind. It's time, it's way past time. 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 Way past time.
This is Kenny Pick from Turn Up the Night, and you're listening to Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean. Check out filterfreeradio.com.
I'll be stoned for Christmas. You can plan on me. I must insist on a lemon twist martinis by the tree.
And welcome back to Filter Free Radio. My name is Jacob Dean. We're broadcasting live. Little Christmas music for you. Not conventional, I will add.
A little tongue-in-cheek Christmas music.
I love me some parody Christmas music. If you're not familiar with Bob Rivers and you're filling up for it, I strongly suggest you check out some of Bob Rivers' Christmas parodies. I'll Be Stoned for Christmas, Shopping Around the Parking Lot. God, there's so many. Walking Around in Women's Underwear. I love it.
He did that one too? I remember that one.
Yeah, there's many. Bob Rivers is kind of the Christmas parody master. Real quick, before we get too far into this final segment of Filter Free Radio on December 12th, 2011, I want to mention, tune into the Nicole Sandler program right here on Radio or Not, radioornot.com, the home of Nicole Sandler. Yeah, I love Nicole. Pardon me. The reason you're going to be tuning in tomorrow is because you're going to be hearing Shano, our super mass producer, webmaster Shano, will be filling in with Rain of For Freedom's blog. Shane and Rain. It's Rain and Shane are going to be filling in for Nicole tomorrow. So hopefully they will plug away on the Occuthon. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Shane and And many thanks to Nicole, who was actually in Washington, D.C. all last week. I spoke with Nicole. We are in Washington, D.C. We do broadcast filter-free radio from Washington, D.C. Nicole was in town all last week for Take Back the Capitol. If you're interested, information on that, it is 99, as in the digits, 9999ndc.org, about Occupy the Capitol. And I was hoping to be able to go down there. I went down there for a couple of days. I didn't get anything that I thought was actually really worth sharing with you. And we could talk about it if you want, but maybe we can save that for another time. I was really hoping to be able to speak with Nicole for a minute or two about why she came up, but I love the fact that Nicole Sandler, our leader of Radio or Not, was setting the example by getting involved, by participating, by literally getting on an airplane, flying to Washington, D.C., going to the camp.
Spending her own money.
Spending her own money, her time, her effort, showing up, getting involved, making a difference. That's what it's all about. And that's why it's so important for all of us to not only support, but participate. I can't emphasize this enough. Please participate. Please, please, please. And a way of participating is Shano is going to be participating on the Nicole Sandler Show tomorrow. So check it out right here on radioornot.com and on the Ustream chat room where all of you are listening to me talk now.
Shano's the brains behind Radio or Not.
And Shano is the awesome webmaster of filterfreeradio.com. Let's mention that a couple more times, shall we? That's Jacob doing shameless self promotion.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. So as I mentioned before the break, I'm going to play this for you really quick. History is pop culture. Pop culture is history. As much as I want to play Chris Hedges for you 2 hours every Monday night,
I do.
For an eternity, I know you will eventually tune out because, you can only withstand so much of Chris Hedges' mind-infiltrating brilliance. But sometimes it takes other voices, pop culture voices, to really hit home to those of us who Chris Hedges, who's that? I don't care. Whatever. I don't care. Where's my, I want my, I don't care. Where's, okay. Wait.
I don't care.
So.
I don't care.
There you go. There you go. You could have one of the most, my point is you could have the most brilliant, articulate, spot on mind telling you what's up, and you wouldn't even care. Hit the liner.
What?
Hit the liner.
I don't care.
And you wouldn't care, but if some superstar pop culture giant, and I'm so far out of pop culture that I can't list references, someone like Jay-Z were to come along and be like, oh my goodness, Jay-Z said that. Hell yeah, I'm totally behind Jay-Z. Sometimes we need that, and I wouldn't say to push against these people.
He reaches a different audience at the very least.
Right, and what we can do is we can reach out if they're saying the right thing. I want to share this really quick with you. Jay-Z is basically a pop culture icon in the realm of hip-hop and rap and urban music and record production. And basically, he's one of America's very top, very wealthy people, and he's coming out in support of paying of the wealthy paying their fair share in taxes. And as we know, the patriotic millionaires, 24 millionaires, came to Capitol Hill recently in the last couple of weeks, simply to say, tax us, please, tax us. Jay-Z had this to say about paying more taxes.
Me personally, I wouldn't mind paying more taxes if it went to the things that really mattered. If it went to education, people in poverty, and if it went to the right things, I wouldn't mind. I think it should be more. It should be clearly defined where all the money's being allocated. Because you can understand paying so much for taxes and then things not improving. You're like, where's everything going to? Like, where's? That's what I'm saying.
It should be argument.
Yes. Should be an open accounting of where everything is going to. I'm sure people, if it was for health care and for education and, to help people that were, I think most people with a conscience and with some integrity and moral fiber wouldn't have any problem paying more taxes.
The Occupy Wall Street movement. I'm wondering what your take is on what we're seeing develop in this country.
I think it's saying a lot, all over the world, that people can get their voice out there and fight for a better world, education and healthcare and power. There's so many different other fights that we must take on. It's good. It's a good thing that young people are getting out and getting their voice heard.
It absolutely is a good thing. Am I a fan of JC? Not really. Do I have any of his albums? Nope. But he is a voice that is reaching a different audience, like Scott, you mentioned. He's a voice that's reaching a different audience with a pretty decent message there, and that is, and this kind of bothers me. When I wrote this, you can read this 11-page piece that I put together with a little help from Yes Magazine's This Changes Everything, the Occupy Wall Street and the 99% Movement Handbook, over at occuthon.com that I put together over the weekend. One of the things in there is it's always the 99% versus the 1%. It's always the 1% versus the 99%. I want there to be 100%.
The reality is it's literally, if you want to break numbers down, it's like 99.6 or 99.7. I mean, it's not even 1%. It's literally like 1/10 of 1%.
Right.
That's how distorted it is. So
right.
If you can convince, the rub for me has always been, if you can convince the upper middle class, the people who are doing well, who've worked hard their whole lives, maybe in their 30s, 40s, whatever, make six-figure incomes, have the house, have the American dream, or so-called American dream, if you can convince them that the life they're living is not the right life to live, good luck with that. But that's sort of what we need. We need those people at the top of the middle class to join us, because those are the ones who identify themselves with the rich, because that's who they want to be. And then they're much closer than the rest of us. So if we can get them on board, that would be a huge help, because they're the ones with enough money to donate to things, for ads and crap like that. So
and the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart.
What you know about Rush?
I love Rush.
Well, you're a little young for that, aren't you?
Yeah, I love Rush. Don't get me started.
Yeah.
I'm an old soul, brother. I'm an old soul. But and that brings me to kind of the last point that I want to make for the show. We've got about 15 minutes, Scott. The last point that I want to make, and I've saved what I would consider the best for last. I've got a 2-minute piece from Dennis Kucinich on his recent NEED Act, N-E-E-D Act. I want to play this for you. I want to share with you what is basically the Dennis Kucinich report. You can Google it. You can find this online. It's 2 minutes long. But in this, he literally lays out why we need to be supporting the Occupy Wall Street movement. When we... it's not a break, but I'm going to play this for you, and when we come back from this clip, Scott, I want to let you riff for the last 10 minutes of the show.
Just think how much better off we'd have been if Kucinich had won president.
Exactly. So here is Dennis Kucinich, another progressive voice that we need to be supporting and rallying behind, kind of laying it out and telling us what's up with the NEED Act.
I'm Nancy
Check
Nash,
it out.
and let's talk
The
about
Federal Reserve secretly gave nearly $8 trillion, that's T for trillion dollars, to American and international banks during the 2008 bailout, according to Bloomberg News. The banks made an estimated $13 billion in profits through this scheme. Did Congress have a clue? 9 of the largest banks that received the secret Fed bailouts paid nearly 5,000 of their employees $1 million or more in bonuses. Question: where did the Fed get most of the $7.7 trillion? Answer: they created it out of nothing. That's right, the Federal Reserve creates money, a constitutional privilege the founders had reserved to Congress. The Fed secretly picked winners and losers, propping up big banks, while the banks accelerated foreclosure on millions of American homes. Unlimited resources for the banks, nothing for the American people. Does there exist a more graphic example of how thoroughly rotten this financial system is? Now do you understand Occupy Wall Street? 10 million homes are in jeopardy, 14 million people out of work, 50 million without health care, endless wars. The Fed creates money out of nothing, gives it to banks. Banks keep it on deposit, gain interest, pay high bonuses, fat city, well, the rest of America falls apart. The Fed creates money out of nothing for the banks. Meanwhile, the rest of us have to be stuck in a debt-based economic system? I don't think so. We need to regain our sovereignty over the banks. We must take back the power the Federal Reserve grabbed in 1913 and reclaim Congress's constitutional right to create money and to invest it, to create jobs, save homes, enable education for all, health care for all, retirement security, and peace. Is this possible? Is there a way to make this happen? Yes, it's called the NEED Act. Learn more about it on my website. This is the fundamental issue of our times. Who creates money, who gets it, and to what end? The wealth of this nation is being accelerated to the top with the help of the Fed. H.R. 2990, the National Emergency Employment Defense Act, the NEED Act, would stop the rogue Fed, put it under the U.S. Treasury, impose transparency, and at last reclaim the power of the people to have control over our own destiny. The bill would establish fiscal integrity, reassert the sovereignty of the people over money and banks, and enable the creation of jobs, infrastructure repairs, and education without increasing the national debt or causing inflation. We need the NEED Act. We need to regain control of our country.
We need more progressive, dominant voices like Dennis Kucinich in roles of leadership in this country. We need to be supporting... Oh, God, isn't that brilliant? Check out Dennis Kucinich's website and the NEED Act, NEED, for more information on that. But I love Dennis. I actually got to speak with him at the most recent...
State of the Union.
State of the Union. Thank you, Scott. And it was so cool to actually be able to, kind of interact with Representative Kucinich and just kind of pick his brain a little bit and about progressive politics and why don't we have more Dennis Kuciniches? Why don't we have more Elizabeth Warrens, more Bernie Sanders?
I'll tell you why.
Sanders
because you have to sell your soul to move up in the meritocracy, to move up in power. You have to give a piece of yourself away. You have to compromise your morals. And it ends up selling your soul completely. I mean, it's like the clip I played last week. I'm not sure if I played it on Sausage or on the air or not, but where Robert Scheer talks about Obama and the meritocracy, about there's nothing left in his gut.
I think he is the product of the meritocracy. I think he no longer has anything in his gut, just like Bill Clinton. You can come from an ordinary background. Bill Clinton came from a very poor background, Then you go through this tracking, this training, this education, and it leads you to forget where you've come from. And so you end up supporting policies that incredibly hurt the people that you grew up with. If you want to look, let me just throw one statistic at you. The direct result of this meltdown was a reversal of all of the economic social gains of the last 40 years. You've wiped out the gains that Martin Luther King was begging for with his March on Poverty.
Yep, and that's what happens. In order to move up and get power, you gotta compromise, and that's where we are today, unfortunately.
Right, and I think... we've got about 10 minutes to wrap up until the end of the show, and I want to talk about, my personal favorite topic of everything. My personal favorite topic is simply solutions. I'm someone who, I don't want to, I literally do this, and I contradict myself just about every show. But I want to talk about the big picture. I want to talk about the end solution. I want to talk about what it's going to take in order for us to make a better world. And
socialism.
Well, and it's
socialism is the solution.
Yeah, but you can boil it down to a bumper sticker like that. But half of the people who hear the word socialism, their first initial reaction is the complete opposite of what it actually should be.
Because that term has been so evacuated of meaning, in this country and for intentionally purposes. I mean, we're living in a world of propaganda, and that word has been propagandized to mean the Soviet Union, which has nothing to do with socialism, unfortunately.
Right, and I agree that socialism is ultimately part of the ultimate solution. I want to talk about a minute, if I may, and kind of wrap up the show on community, and how important community is for a new culture. Because basically the experience of community deepens the yearning for a new culture. And by new culture, I mean a radically inclusive, respectful, supportive, and horizontal culture and community. You can basically break down this example to something as simple as a softball team or a bowling team or a sports team that you participated in school.
There's no I in team.
But there ain't no we neither. or just as something as simple as a community of radio hosts. I don't know. I've got nothing. My point is that the experience of community deepens the yearning for a new culture, for an inclusive culture, a culture that includes everyone. Think about that for a second. When you experience something like the chess club, or when you geek alert, when you experience a community that exists around your bowling team. Bowling is very near and dear to my heart. If you go to filterfreeradio.com and read my bio, I'm all about bowling. Basically, when you participate in these communities, in these small communities, it gives you a person-to-person relationship, just as Tom Schaefer points out in the chat room. It gives you this sense of inclusion. It gives you this sense of team, of this sense of everyone is equal. We are experiencing a horizontal culture that is supportive of each other. There is no I in team. You're absolutely right, Scott. There is no I in team, and that's what makes, the community structure so important. And as we and during the Occuthon, I want to rant on how we need to build local communities. Local communities is ultimately the solution. But
I think we should talk about propaganda and disinformation too.
Right.
Because that's sort of what fuels the lack of community.
Right.
You're told you're only worth something if you buy things, etc.
And what the community is able to do is embed a greater sense of equality and more accountability within itself. And these things do more than just simply change the income distribution or the wealth distribution or these short-term solutions that can arise and can fall with the next ruling class or powers to be. But deeply embedding this sense of community, deeply embedding this sense of equality into someone that is already there initially to begin with. And I want to talk more about that. I shared a story about the kids. I want a piece of candy. I'm going to talk about more about that in the Occuthon coming up on Friday. But that's exactly what it's going to take for the ultimate solution, for the sustainable solution, for the new culture. You look at Occupy Wall Street, and if you want to boil Occupy Wall Street down to a bumper sticker, it's this. Occupy Wall Street is a culture strike. As Matt Taibbi points out for Rolling Stone article, a culture strike is long overdue. Correct me if I'm wrong, brother. It's what, 30 years overdue? 20 years overdue?
Social cycles go in 30, 70 years. And so, yeah, we're actually 10 to 15 years overdue. It should have happened in the mid-'90s, but Clinton inflated the bubble, and so we didn't have a revolution then. And then, of course, Bush came along and inflated another housing bubble, so we didn't have a revolution there yet either. And now all the bubbles are collapsed, and here we are.
Right.
So, if I may,
go ahead. Absolutely.
Can I play a clip?
Yeah, we got a couple minutes. Go ahead, bud.
Sure. This goes into what you're talking about in terms of, I guess, getting people in the right frame of mind, and it's about propaganda.
We live in a culture that is so utterly awash in lies and propaganda as to create a kind of collective hypnosis or self-delusion where you have people through the manipulation of fear and permanent war and self-glorification, in essence clamoring for their own enslavement. And that's extremely difficult to overcome.
It's extremely difficult to overcome. I mean, through propaganda, you have people who think that if they just are successful monetarily and in material wealth, that their life has meaning, and that's really quite a very meaningless life. And so, without community, you're without any sort of what's what I'm looking for, without any sort of giving back to society, making the world a better place, leaving things better than they were when you found them. Your life is essentially meaningless.
Right.
So.
And we've only got a couple of minutes left in the broadcast. Again, I want to mention and I want to thank everyone who helps make this show possible. Nicole Sandler of RadioOrNot.com, DanoSongs.com for music production, the Roy Burt of CrownedRecords.com for music production, and all of you for listening. Before we go, I want to talk about real quick about how important it is to participate and activate yourselves and the people around you in order to create a new culture in which we no longer are subject to the corruption and God, I don't want to say slavery, but it almost feels like we are slaves.
No, it's slavery. You can use that word.
To the system. And it's so important for us to participate, and not only participate, but activate those of us among us who need to participate. And that if you lead by example, if you set the standard, if you do the right thing, support will be there with you instantaneously. I've got 20 people hanging out in the chat room right now, feeling what I'm saying.
Do you feel me?
And if I'm misrepresenting you in the chat room, or my apologies, but I think you're with me.
It's like a lot of people I've talked to and listened to who participated in protests and occupations, like Cornel West and Chris Hedges and such, and other people have said that it's a very liberating experience to be arrested in a protest, or to not even be arrested, but to be in that protest and to be in that environment with all these other people doing something that is right. And it's something very liberating. So I encourage people to get out there and protest.
Absolutely. Never give up. We must pick somewhere to stand, and at this moment, occupation should be everyone's occupation. You like that? Think about that one for a minute. And when you and once you come around to what I just said, join us again next week for Filter Free Radio. But in the meantime, more importantly, join us for Occuthon this Friday, December 16th at 7 p.m. We will be broadcasting for 24 hours nonstop right here on Radio or Not. Occuthon.com for more information is the website. And on that note, I'm Jacob Dean signing out, saying see you next week right here on Filter Free Radio. If you'd like to watch any of the previous shows on podcast, all for free, you can visit filterfreeradio.com. Thank you to Nicole Sandler. And Occuthon is this week, Occuthon Friday. I'm so excited. Scott, are you excited?
You know it.
All right, we'll see you on Friday for Occuthon.
This is it.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to breathe. And I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
You're listening to Jacob Dean, streaming live on the web.
The revolution will be broadcast.
We bring you the real stuff.